Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to the Fort Salem Library, where we read you your fanfiction. So sit down or don't, relax or don't, and enjoy these stories in a way you have not before. We at Fort Salem Library do not own Motherland Fort Salem or any of the related characters. The Motherland Fort Salem series is created by Elliot Lawrence and owned by Freeform. This story is a work of fanfiction and is meant for entertainment only. We are not making any profit from these stories. All rights of the original Motherland Fort Salem story belong to Freeform. We also do not own All That Remains or any of its original characters and storylines. We did, however, get permission from the author to read their story. This story was created and written by TrueFreak89, and you can find a link in our show notes. This story is being read to you by Angela.
All That Remains, Chapter 3. The screeching was unbearable, and after 2 hours of it, Rael couldn't think straight. She was still trapped with no way out. The freakers wouldn't lose interest in the elevator while they could see her. Her only hope was that her unit was coming for her. That was, if that civilian asshole hadn't told them she was dead. Either way, her unit would come back for her, eventually. Her sister witches wouldn't leave her behind, even if they thought they were only coming back for her body. They would come. Rael had to keep going until then. She sipped at the water in her canteen. They never left the base without at least 3 days' worth of rations in their packs, so at least she wouldn't starve to death. There were crates of alcohol stacked in the corner of the elevator, so even if she starved, she wouldn't have to do it sober. Rael stuffed a couple of bottles into her pack, hoping she'd get the chance to share them with her unit back at the base. The seed on the metal cage was holding, at least, keeping the freakers out for now. Rael entered basic, ready to be war meat after her mom's death. She expected to die in some distant land, fighting other witches in a godforsaken war started by humans. What Rael hadn't expected to find was a reason to carry on living. Her unit. Her family. The world ending during their first year of war college had kind of blindsided her too. Even a pessimist like Rael had expected a more heroic end than getting trapped in an elevator by a swarm. It would be a shitty way to go out. Rael was contemplating her fate and how long she might be able to put up with the endless screeching when the lights overhead flickered to life. She shielded her eyes with her arm, dazzled by the sudden brightness after hours spent in the dark. Rael didn't get a chance to wonder about the power coming on. The elevator stuttered into life and started going down. Rael jumped to her feet, pulling her pack on while the elevator passed floor after floor, and she awaited her rescue. When the elevator stopped on the first floor, it wasn't the smiling faces of her unit Rael found herself staring at. Instead, it was a smug face of a stranger, a young woman dressed in civilian clothing and carrying a backpack as big as Rael's. Rael frowned. "Who the hell are you?" The girl's smirk widened, her eyes raking over Rael and drinking her in. "I could tell you, or we could get the hell out of here and save the introductions for later." Rael heard the screeching of hundreds of freakers streaming down the stairs, and it made the choice for her. "Later," she agreed, reversing the seed on the metal gate, keeping her locked in. "Good choice. Now follow me." The girl took off without waiting to see if Rael would follow. She did, catching up with her mysterious savior as she reached an open window. "I stopped the elevator on this floor because they've blocked the ground floor. We'll have to go out this way." Rael moved closer to her, their shoulders brushing as she peered out the window. It was a steep drop, but nothing worse than she'd tackled in basic. Deciding she was sick of trailing behind the other girl, she went first. Rael dropped to the ground like a lead balloon, her left ankle twisting underneath her. She covered her own mouth as she bit down on a scream that would bring every infected in town down on them. There was a thud as the girl tossed her pack out the window and it landed beside Rael. The girl followed suit, landing with the grace of a stray cat. She wore the same smug smirk from earlier as she picked up her pack. You didn't quite stick the landing there, soldier girl. She offered her hand to Rael and helped her to her feet. Rael winced, the pain shooting from her ankle and right up to her knee. Can you walk on it? She asked. Yeah, I think so. Good, because my camp is half a mile away. Rael chewed on her bottom lip as she glanced around the side of the building. The town had quieted down again, most of the freakers having returned to their nests to wait for sundown, but the heavy rain and overcast sky meant plenty of them were still roaming around. She could fire off a flare and hope someone at the base saw it, but it would be dark soon and she'd be putting her unit in danger. The stranger seemed to know what she was thinking. The guy you were with? He told your soldier buddies you were dead. I figured you might have some shit to steal. Didn't think you'd still be alive. She leaned against the wall, wearing a nonchalant expression with her arms crossed, trying to sound disinterested. Your camp, is it safe? Safer than here, the girl shrugged. You coming or not? They walked for 20 minutes, heading deeper and deeper into the woods until Rael had to stop. She sat on an overturned tree and massaged his swollen ankle while her rescuer took a drink of water from her canteen. Thanks for helping me back there. You're welcome, but I find actions speak louder than words. What food do you have? She wore the same nonplussed expression as earlier. Rael was second-guessing herself for trusting a stranger. A day's ration. She kept her answer vague, guessing at what was coming next. She was right. Hand them over, the girl said, holding her hand out to emphasize her point. All of it? You're not going to leave me with anything? Rael pulled a face as she started digging in her pack. You're military. Big group, big truck. You obviously come from a base. Iron Mountain, maybe? She didn't wait for Rael to answer. I'm sure you've had more meals than I have of late. She had her there. Rael tossed her rations across the clearing and they landed at the girl's feet. Is there a camp or are you just robbing me? She asked as the other girl stuffed the rations into her own backpack. She gave Rael that same infuriating smirk. There's a camp. It's close. She stood, pulling her pack on. A bit of advice, soldier girl. You should learn to lie to strangers. She shot Rael a wink. She smiled despite herself. Hey, what's your name, anyway? What's yours? Rael. Rael Collar. The other girl grinned. She walked over and stuck her hand out for Rael to shake. Rael took it and used it to pull herself up. Scylla. Got a last name, Scylla? Rael asked. I do. Her grin widened, dazzling blue eyes raking over Rael from head to toe. But I'm not telling. A girl's gotta have some mystery. Rael barked out a laugh. Scylla had appeared out of nowhere and saved her ass like some guardian angel. That was mysterious enough for Rael. Back at the base, Abigail and Tally were finishing unloading the truck when Abigail spotted Max, the civilian who got Rael killed, trying to pocket stuff again. Snarling, Abigail dropped the crate she was holding and stalked over to him. What the actual fuck? She shoved Max, sending him falling onto his ass in the dirt. Hey! Anacostia came over, accompanied by Graves. Graves took hold of the civilian while Anacostia held Abigail back. What's going on? That's what I'd like to know, Lieutenant. Alder's voice cut through the air like a knife through hot butter. The women stood to attention while Max picked himself off the ground and dusted himself off. Well, I'm waiting. General, there was an unfortunate... This degenerate got Rael killed, and now he's trying to steal. Abigail interrupted Anacostia as she tried to explain. The dumb bitch got herself killed. This time, both Tally and Abigail moved on him. Anacostia had her work cut out, keeping both of them back. Enough! Alder demanded, and the two soldiers stood to attention, hate burning in their eyes as they glared at the civilian. Alder turned and fixed her own steely gaze on the man. Her lips pursed, and her expression unreadable. Her tone was clipped as she spoke. Rael Collar was one of the finest women I have had the pleasure of serving beside. If you're alive and she is dead, then it's undoubtedly because Rael sacrificed her life for yours. You should be grateful. For the stealing, he gets 30 days in the hole. Take him. Alder snapped, and Graves took hold of his arm in a vice-like grip and led him away, ignoring his protests. With the civilian gone, Alder turned to what was left of the bellwether unit. Ladies, my deepest condolences. I meant what I said. Rio Collar was a fine soldier. She will be sorely missed. We have lost too many of our sisters to this plague already. Take a few days off. Grieve your sister. Abigail and Tally did as they were told and took the elevator down into the base. On their way to the dorm, they ran into Adil and Khalida. Abigail, did you find anything on your supply run? Khalida asked in her usual monotone voice. At only 10 years old, she spoke and acted more like a fully grown adult. Where's Rael? She said she'd look for more books for me. Adil, the actual adult of the two, picked up on the tension the two soldiers were radiating in their red and swollen eyes. Kali, the girls are tired, but we should let them rest. Khalida looked from her big brother to the girls, finally registering their distress. You've been crying. Rael is dead, isn't she? Abigail nodded her head, the movement stiff. She'd woken up in the back of the supply truck 5 miles from the town where they'd left Rael. Anacostia had to knock her out again to stop her from jumping out the truck and going back. Abigail knelt down, bringing herself level with the younger girl. She was old enough to know the truth. Somebody told us Rael died on the run. We're not sure yet, but we didn't get a chance to check for ourselves. But we're going back first thing tomorrow to bring her back. Khalida wrapped her small arms around Abigail's neck, squeezing her tight. I'm sorry, Abigail. The little girl had lost her entire tribe. Everyone she ever knew except for her brother. And yet there she was, comforting Abigail. Me too. She pressed a kiss to Khalida's cheek. Adil ushered her sister back, placing a firm hand on her shoulder as he offered Abigail a stoic smile. I'm here if you need me. I understand you and Tally need to be together tonight. Thank you. Abigail nodded, biting back fresh tears as she took Tally's hand. She didn't want to believe Rael was really dead, but it was all starting to feel too real. Inside their dorm, the two girls stripped off their uniform, letting it pull at their feet before they climbed into Rael's bunk together. She's not dead, Tally whispered, so quietly Abigail might have missed it had they not been cuddled so close together. Ray's tough. She's a fighter. We shouldn't have left her. You're right. You go back first thing. Steal a truck if we have to. Alder be damned. We're bringing our girl home. Rael and Scylla reached her camp by nightfall. It was a rundown gas station that probably hadn't looked much better before the world ended. The windows were dark, making it look abandoned and most likely full of freakers. Scylla reassured Rael that that was not the case. Still, she felt uneasy approaching the fire exit at the back of the building. Anything could be waiting inside for her. Rael had heard stories about bands of drifters setting traps for unwary survivors. Her mom had warned her about trusting strangers, even cute ones. But Rael had no other options at this point. She needed somewhere to bunker down for the night. Plus, Scylla had gone to a lot of trouble getting her out of the bottling plant. That was a big risk, just to get at the contents of Rael's pack. Still, her hand hovered over his scourge as Scylla rapped on the fire door with her knuckles. A few seconds passed before someone inside pushed open the door. An all-black man appeared in the doorway, the hurricane lantern he was holding casting shadows on his face and making the age lines around his eyes and mouth appear so much more severe. He looked like a walking skeleton, until he moved the lamp and the shadows disappeared, revealing a kind face. You're back. We were worried, child. Brought some company. He looked past Scylla, offering a gap-toothed smile to Rael. Grandpa Joe, this is Rael. Rael, this is Grandpa Joe. Scylla introduced them as Joe stepped back to let the two girls in, securing the fire exit shut behind them. Nice to meet you, Joe, Rael said, and offered her hand. The old man clasped it in both of his. Call me Grandpa, everybody does. Are you military, Rael, or just dressed up early for Halloween? His grin widened, revealing a few missing teeth. He was far from what Rael had expected to find on the other side of the door. Military, sir. Private first class, Rael answered politely. She'd been taught to respect her elders, and, beside older, Grandpa Joe was the oldest person she'd seen since the outbreak of the infection. Thank you for your service, especially in these times. Come, meet the rest of the family. He clapped her on the shoulder, ushering her towards the stairs and letting Rael use him as a crutch to climb them. Scylla followed close behind. Upstairs, in what looked like to be the manager's office, Rael came face to face with 4 other survivors. 2 women and 2 children, a boy and a girl. The children clung to the legs of the woman in her late 20s as they stared wide-eyed at the newcomer. Joe introduced the group one by one. Everybody, this is Rael. She is a soldier. Rael, that's my daughter Jennifer, and my grandbabies, Charlotte and Anthony. This here is my wife, Mary. Nice to meet y'all. Rael gave a wave. She felt like an exhibit in a zoo with all eyes on her. She almost jumped as Scylla's hand found the small of her back. Nice to meet you too, Rael. Mary, the older woman, greeted her with the same friendly smile as Grandpa Joe had. Is that the session I hear in your voice? Yes, ma'am. Born and raised. Good people, Mary nodded. We came up here from Georgia, looking for Iron Mountain. Is that where you're from, dear? Are your people nearby? It was Scylla who answered. No, her people left her for dead. She walked away from Rael and dropped her overfilled backpack on the desk that had been pushed against the far wall. The base is close by, about 10 miles away, Rael said as the old woman's expression fell, trying to reassure her. It's at least another few days' walk. The town is infested, though. It's too dangerous to go through. That's going to add a couple more miles to the journey. It sounded like Scylla was in charge of the group. Rael wondered how she got caught up with the family. Did you find anything to eat? Jennifer, the mother of the children, asked as Scylla started pulling things out of her pack. Scylla gave her a genuine smile as she nodded. Rael felt a pang of guilt for the hidden rations in her own pack as Scylla started dividing her meager hoard, along with the rations she took from Rael, into 6. Rael walked over and dumped the rest of her rations out on the desk. I grew up in the session. I learned early how to lie about how much I've got. Scylla smirked, knocking her shoulders into Rael's. There's more to you than meets the eye, soldier girl. With the food divided, the group sat down to eat. Rael sat next to Mary on a beaten-up old sofa, Joe insisting she take his place while he sat on the floor with his grandchildren. Scylla sat on a desk among the group, but separate at the same time. How long have you been traveling for? Rael asked Mary once they'd finished eating. From Georgia to here is a long way. It's been a few months. The camp we were at got overrun. We heard about Iron Mountain and decided it was our best bet. And Scylla? Rael tried to sound casual as she brought the other girl up. Mary smiled as she glanced over at the other young woman. We came across her a couple months ago. She was traveling north. That girl is a godsend. We were half starved when she found us, so she does all our foraging, scouts ahead to make sure the way is safe. Rael nodded, watching Scylla out of the corner of her eye. She saved my life. I'm not surprised at that. She's a little quiet, but she has a heart of gold. She could cover a lot more ground on her own with carrying us old folks and 2 little kids. Mary was right. She and Joe had to be pushing 60 and the kids were both under 10. That was quite the burden for someone to take on these days. Rael approached the other girl when she was done eating. She took a seat on a desk beside her, taking the weight off her swollen ankle. I have a plan, Riel spoke in a whisper, not wanting to get anyone's hopes up. Scylla cocked her head. She was listening. I can produce flares. The range is about 10 miles. We might be too far from base, and there's the storm. There's no guarantee they'll see them. It's worth a try, Scylla shrugged, their shoulders brushing. We have people looking out for that sort of thing. They might see. If not, we can get closer tomorrow and try again. Even if they think I'm dead, my unit will come back for me. If they made it back, said Scylla, knocking the wind right out of Riel's sails. They'll come. Riel grind her teeth together. Whatever you say, beautiful. Scylla stood up with a smirk, her intense blue eyes boring into Riel's. Let's get you on the roof. They took the fire escape up to the roof, Scylla helping Riel. The storm had passed, leaving the night air eerily still. The moon was out in full, and the inky black sky was awash with stars, thanks to the lack of light pollution. Riel set herself in the middle of the roof and used the sea to conjure up a bright red spark, which shot straight up into the sky before exploding like a silent firework. She followed it up with a blue one, and then finally green. What do the colors mean? Scylla asked, curious about the display. Red is emergency, blue means survivors, and green means we're safe where we are. Riel explained, taking a seat on the ledge of the roof to wait for a response. Scylla sat beside her, curling her legs underneath her. It's too risky for them to come for us at night. We're safe here for now. If we get a response, we'll take off at first light, try to meet them halfway. Scylla nodded. She didn't seem very excited by the prospect of being rescued by the military. She toyed with the hem of her shirt as she asked, How long have you been military? Private first-class collar? You don't look old enough to have passed basic. I'm 20. I was in my first year of war college. How about you? What were you doing when the world went to shit? Scylla's lips curled up in a smirk. The world has always been shit, she said. Riel rolled her eyes. Yeah, but there weren't a bunch of freaks trying to eat me all the time. Really? I had plenty, but I suppose they at least used to buy me a drink first. Scylla cracked, and Riel found herself laughing. She liked the other girl. I can believe that, beautiful. Should we head back down now? Nah. Scylla shook her head. It's a nice night. Let's stay up here and enjoy the view for a little while, soldier girl.
Please find the fanfiction you just listened to on Archive of Our Own and leave the author some love. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we want to thank them from the bottoms of our hearts for creating these amazing stories and keeping the show alive.